joining us at tonight's presentation, Passion and Profession, a Successful Blend, which is part of our Council of Lafayette Women's virtual conference. We appreciate all of you taking time out of your busy personal and professional lives to connect with Lafayette tonight. Before I introduce our moderator and panelists, I'd like to go over a few housekeeping items. First, please know that we have utilized the audience mute feature in order to ensure that the presentation is not interrupted by background noise. We invite you to include your full name and class year on your profile by renaming yourself. That's just those 3 dots at the top of your picture. For the best viewing experience, please select the speaker view on the top right corner of your screen. This will allow the current speaker to be front and center on your screen. We welcome questions and ask that you use the chat feature, which is located at the bottom of your screen, to type in any that you may have. And finally, please know that this presentation is being recorded so that you and the rest of the Lafayette community will have access to it later. And now I'd like to introduce our moderator, Alana Klass, who is Senior Associate Director and Coordinator of Equity and Inclusion Initiatives at the Gateway Career Center. And Alana will be joined by our wonderful panel, which includes Annie Schwartz, class of 1987, Kamaka Martin, class of 2004, and Sydney Edelson, class of 2019. And with that, Alana, I hand it over to you.
Great, thank you, Audrey. Welcome, everybody. I'm excited to have our panelists joining me this evening. I would like to start by asking our panelists just to give a brief intro, what their major was in college, their current position, and a little bit about the position you currently hold. So I'm going to ask Kamaka to start.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. I'm Kamaka Martin, class of 2004. I was a history and government and law major. I currently work in the legal technology space. I am the vice president of managed services for a new law company called Legility, Legal and Agility. More recently, I also founded a company called Better Insight Consulting, where I coach new, seasoned, and aspirational leaders on how to enhance their managerial skills.
Thank you, Kamaka. Annie.
Hi, I'm Annie Schwartz. I graduated from Lafayette in 1987, and I was there with my whole family, my sister, my brother-in-law, my brother, and my nephew just graduated, so we're still very into Lafayette. I was a biology major, and currently I am a horse or equine veterinarian. I'm a trained surgeon. So I started off just going to vet school, and then after that doing an internship in surgery specialty. Usually surgeons work in hospitals, but I ended up coming to Rhode Island where there were no hospitals. So I started a little niche. I mean, I'm 27 years into this, so I sort of could take it in a direction that works for me. I have 2 little girls, and I started my own little referral practice where I go out in my car and do things, procedures for other veterinarians. And we have some pictures, maybe you'll see some of them. It's a little bit far out because I do these procedures out in the field with another vet instead of taking the horse to a hospital. But it's really cool. It's a whole little niche that's different. It appeals to people that can't necessarily afford to go to a hospital, and I'm in a really good location for it. So it's fun. I love it.
Great, thank you, Annie. And Sydney.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sydney Edelson. I graduated Lafayette in the class of 2019. I am currently, my major was a Bachelor's of Science in Psychology and a minor in philosophy. And currently I'm working in community mental health at Penn Foundation, which is a behavioral health organization. And I work as a clinical care manager for people struggling with opioid use disorder or opioid addiction. And so what my role entails is being basically a community-based resource liaison that's responsible for connecting systems for our clients across all of their life domains, from housing to employment to medical to legal, and providing warm transitions into different levels of care, and being basically just their main community-based support that helps connect them to resources and navigate life back in the community.
Great, thank you, everyone. So it gives you a little bit of background of who we have with us this evening. Since our program is called Passions and Professions, could you talk a little bit about how you actually managed to find or identify your passion and how you turned that into a career? And anybody can jump in.
Well, I can say I started off with horses being my passion from the time I was a very little girl. And somehow I always said I'm going to be a veterinarian and specialize in horses. I had no idea what that meant, but somehow I just pressed on, and at Lafayette, I was a biology major and sort of did all of the pre-med requirements and went on to do this. And so, yeah, it's pretty cool. I can say I feel really lucky. I often feel like I'm not working. I say, can't believe they pay me to do this.
I can echo that. I would say that I found my passion quite early. I've always been inquisitive and a bit of a talker. I loved debate and model Congress in high school, and I went to law camp. Which is what I like to call the programs I attended in high school. So like National Student Leadership Conference, Congressional Youth Leadership Council. So I knew early that I was interested in the law. And I think once I was at Lafayette, I was able to study government and law. I mean, I interned at the DOJ, and after college, I went on to work for a law firm, but I also was interested in figuring out whether this was in fact what I really wanted to do. So and I think Alana was instrumental in this as well. While working in New York, I actually decided, I was like, well, I'm interested in interior design. So I reached out and I did some informational interviews with some alum. I visited some studios in New York City, and it didn't pique my interest in the way that I thought it would. So, one of the things was really identifying, knowing what I did want to do versus what I didn't want to do, like knowing both is equally important. So I would say that I knew, what my passion was very early on, and, dabbling in other areas really solidified that for me.
For me, I actually started a mental health advocacy, fundraising, and awareness campaign in high school called Stop the Stigma. And it actually started with just selling ribbons that everyone would put on their backpacks. Mental health color is lime green, and I sold awareness ribbons to try to create unity and solidarity across the school, so everyone would put the ribbons on their backpack, and hopefully that would start a conversation and just show solidarity about stopping the stigma against mental illness. And I started public speaking and going around the community and sharing my own story with mental health, and sharing this message just about unity and shattering the stigma. And it really became something much bigger than me very quick, and became this new community and new force that I quickly realized that it would be irresponsible for me to not continue because of the impact it was having on my community and on the individuals who were part of the community. And so I knew that, mental health and community-based organizing was something that I needed to be a part of. And then it just, over time, the reason I knew that that was how I needed to spend my life and career, I just became super interested in the intersection of the criminal justice system, mental health, and race, and how all of those things coalesce together. And so this role that I'm in right now specifically is really the intersection of the criminalization of addiction, and it allows me to navigate and help people navigate the legal system and all the ways that healthcare and medical and legal and housing, all of these things coalesce into an interwoven system. And so it's been since high school, and I'm not that far away from that, but that's where I'm going for now.
Thank you. And in some instances, an advanced degree is a requirement. So can you talk a little bit about the decision to go on to graduate or professional school, kind of how that played into your career path, and a little bit of information on, choosing your path that way?
Sure, I can start. So, like I said, I knew that I wanted to be in the law from, pretty early on, but before deciding to go to law school, I worked at a law firm in New York. And that was really important because it really just allowed me to get some exposure to the industry from a perspective of, understanding what it's actually like in the day-to-day. And I was very fortunate that there were, several mentors at Goodwin that were really just open in their communication about what their experience was like as well. And I took a very different approach to law school than most people. So because I was working at Goodwin, I had that opportunity to say I wanted to actually go abroad to do my law degree. And while I was at Lafayette, I did a semester at the University of Melbourne in Australia, and I interned at the Department of Justice while I was there. And so when it was time for me to sort of make a decision, I kind of wanted to do something different. And I got the buy-in from one of the managing partners that, hey, this is a great opportunity for you and you would have a place here, on your return. The other thing is that the University of Melbourne is recognized by the American Bar Association, so I wouldn't have to come back and do a bridging course or anything like that. And I feel like that opportunity, like that sense of feeling like I had support in this very atypical decision was something that was really key for me to kind of step out and say, yes, this is exactly what I want to do. The other thing is that I was able to do my, I was actually able to actually get my degree in 2 years because I did a accelerated program, and it required you to have at least 2 years of experience. So once I actually went to law school, I was there with individuals who already had careers. So not only did I come in with some actual real life experience, I was also working with others who, were coming into that environment with a similar experience. And I feel like it really did inform my experience a little bit differently because I had a real world perspective that I could leverage. So I definitely think that all weighed into sort of my decision about, going on to law school, but more specifically how I would frame that for myself.
I guess I could say when I always knew I wanted to go to vet school. I also wanted to live with some friends after college, and I was a little bit afraid to apply. It was a period of time when vet school was close to impossible to get into. So I lived with some friends from Lafayette for a year, and I taught biology at an all-boys school in New York at the Browning School. And then I applied to vet school and went to vet school. And then after that, I also knew in vet school, from vet school, it's different than medical school. You don't have to do an internship in residency. You can actually just go out and practice, which is hard. And you also don't have the extra training. You don't have the checks and balances of people telling you you're doing right or wrong. So to me, I'm not thrilled by that. And it didn't seem like the right thing for me. So I applied for an internship. I did that. Then I did work for another couple of years. Then I applied for surgery residency and did that. So all of these are steps that don't have to be taken in the veterinary field, but to become a specialist, it's just a choice that you make or not. And there are a few different specialties you can do internal medicine, surgery, ophthalmology, or reproduction. And I just decided I wanted to do surgery. So that's
Great,
it.
thank you so much. You've all talked a little bit about, you just kind of knew it was always something that you were interested in. So how did that guide your career choice in what you were doing? You're talking a little bit about doing some exploration and doing some info interviews and all those kinds of things, but how does it really, how do you know that this is the direction for you as you were moving through your careers?
I would say that's probably like the synergy of things. So, working at a law firm, it was, okay, this is what you do. Like you figure out that this is sort of like the logical step to confirm, yes, this is the direction I want to go in. But I am in the legal technology field. So when I actually started, I worked in the labor and department division, and I actually I worked on some legal articles about the Cornerstone electronic discovery case, and which is basically considered like the first definitive case in the U.S. to deal with electronic discovery issues. So one of the things about that was that it was like, okay, this is interesting. It's now the cross section between technology and the law. So that was sort of like compartmentalized as this is just where I landed when I got to the law firm. But then, so once I actually graduated from law school, I did a little competition work, a little bit of intellectual property work. And then I graduated at the height of the recession. So it was one of those times where job offers were, being rescinded, and you had to figure out a different way to approach your career at that point. And for me, I was fortunate that I landed a job in an e-discovery consultancy in New York. And that would allow me to have one foot in the business world and one foot in the legal world. And actually, we were working with the plaintiff in this Cornerstone case. And so it all kind of came full circle for me, pretty early on that, okay, well, this is something that I could continue to leverage my my degree. I could also still kind of continue to grow in this industry that is growing leaps and bounds. And then where we are today with big data, that is my world. And I, thoroughly enjoy being consultative and using AI technology to advance, the legal discovery process. So it really, it was almost like a balance of both, right? It wasn't just that my passion guided my career choice. It was also that when I did enter the field, I was exposed to an aspect of the law that I didn't even know existed at the time, and was then able to sort of grow organically from there.
Thank you.
I'll say that as someone who's more recently graduated college, what I'm teetering on right now is how I want to approach systems level change. If I want to be at a systems level, if I want to be more direct service, my experiences in college, I don't know if Mr. Landis, who's on this call, is connected to the Landis Center, but the Landis Center was, okay, no. The Landis Center was a huge part of my college experience. And so that was pretty direct service. And so to me, the passion came first, but it's a really interesting journey to discover and give myself permission to just explore all the different ways and facets at which I can approach systemic versus direct service change, and how I can be the best advocate and just liberator that I can for the causes that I care about the most.
I guess maybe, Amy, you could show some of the pictures and it would just speak for itself now. I don't have a lot to say other than this is something I always wanted to do, and I'm out there literally, it's sort of a combination. I think what I like about it is it's using my brain and being physical all the time. And, you know, it's both intellectual and physically stimulating. So here I'm just taking radiographs of a horse's knee, and they come up on this digital machine. I mean, it's as good as stuff in a human hospital. So it's always learning how to use the new equipment, and it's just, it drives me and sends me. Here I was just, this is a silly picture, but I thought it was kind of cool. I was at a baby shower and they had a chicken that's eye was injured, and I'm scared to death of birds, but I had all my stuff in my car and I agreed to look at it if the guy held the chicken, and we fixed the chicken's eye. So that was just for fun. Here's just a big, huge horse that I was taking care of. And I often think to myself, I can't believe this is work. I mean, it's cool. Doing some eye surgery. Here is sort of my new thing, is that I work in the field. So I anesthetize the horse. And then this friend of mine who was a technician, Lucy, did the anesthesia and I did the surgery. And now we're holding the horse down, waiting for it to wake up. I think this one had an umbilical hernia. And this one I did with my friend Kara, whose brother went to Lafayette, small world. Did a pretty major surgery on this horse down in the grass, and now we're just helping him wake up from anesthesia. And this, I can't remember, maybe it was an umbilical hernia as well. So we get him in all these positions so that I can actually do the project, and the drapes to keep it as clean as we can out in the field. And as I said, it's not typical of a horse surgeon, but I'm at a point where I guess I could make whatever I want, make work. And so I feel like I do it in the field as long as it's appropriate and the people are comfortable with it. And I know that it's safe for the horse to do it this way if they can't afford to go to a hospital. And they have both of us working here. I was removing a fractured bone on a horse, and that guy in the corner is the other vet. He's the regular vet, and he called me to do this. So I guess what I can just say about all of it, it is my passion, and I became my profession.
Thank you. Sydney, do you want to, Amy, we'll have you share Sydney's pictures and she can talk a little bit about those as well?
Sure. So for me, if you go, Amy, to the second slide, please, you'll see, so these are the ribbons in the picture with all the kids on the left, all the students at my high school holding their ribbons. And in the bottom left, you can see it says Stop the Stigma UD. My school was Upper Dublin. And actually the picture, the words Stop the Stigma are made up of 1,600 miniature lime green stop signs that every student signed as an indication of them pledging to stop the stigma against mental illness. And then I compiled the stop signs into those words, and they hung as a banner in the entrance of my school as an embodiment of our school being a stigma-free zone, and to remind all the students that they made that pledge and that that's the identity of our school now. And so then the organizations in the bottom, the Brain and Behavior Research Foundation, that is who I first started fundraising with. And then I became an affiliate of the organization and got to go to New York and meet like the coolest, most innovative, renowned scientists working to discover and heal various different mental illnesses. And then on the other slide, there's just a continuation of that at Lafayette, different public speaking engagements, TED Talk, Senior Voices, different campaigns I did. Spread Love on Our Paws was a campaign to fundraise for To Write Love on Her Arms, which is a suicide prevention organization. And all the students paid $1 to sign the banner. And the $1 went to the organization. And then the banner again symbolized them being stigma-free at Lafayette. And that's Fairnon in the background, if you can make it out, the balcony of Fairnon. And so this, you know, it doesn't, like Annie just said, it doesn't feel like work at all because it feels so aligned with my purpose and like I'm so integrated in my value system and my guiding philosophy. And, you know, it's all just about building relationships for me and connection and helping people have a safety net and a support system that we all deserve and need in order to sometimes get back on our feet.
Thank you. You've all talked a lot about, you know, doing something that you're passionate about. So how does actually working in the field, in a field you're passionate about, change your outlook on work every day? I automatically saw smiles on everybody's faces for that. So
I can say in the past, I literally, as a 55-year-old woman with a 9-year-old daughter, can say I spent my entire life working. And there used to be nights where I would go, or days I'd go in on Friday morning and I literally wouldn't sit down or sleep until Sunday night. So that was hard in those days, but I think it gave me the background to be able to turn it in a way that works for me now. And I can say that I never feel like I'm going to work. I mean, sure, you have to get up and go somewhere, and I don't love to drive, and my new world is driving, but it makes the rest of my world work out. I can still do my job. It is my passion, and I can also have children that could be my grandchildren, but they're still my kids, and I have a great life now. So I think it isn't work. I mean, it's just it's part of my identity. I can say that for absolutely sure, which I think is cool.
I would say that for me, you know, working in an industry that you are really passionate about, it just means that you're working with intention. I really enjoy what I do in the day-to-day. And like I said, I've always been really inquisitive. So for me, I find the joy in providing the solution, being the person that, you know, my clients are coming to provide them with consultation. And really that concept of technology, which I never thought that like I would even have a really strong interest in, but just thinking about the ability to use artificial intelligence to help make the legal process run more smoothly has been great. And one of the things that you know, I've been able to do with that platform is to help other women who are also looking to advance their careers. So that's something that I think is really important. You know, as a woman in a, you know, a male dominated field, like, you know, you definitely need that encouragement, you need that support. And I'm able to blend that with my consultancy. And that has been great. I have women reaching out who are, you know, looking to sort of take different make different career moves. I had someone reach out to me recently about wanting to step into a VP role at another technology company, and, you know, what steps and skills, you know, they would need to be successful. And I'm really grateful that I have the support of my team to be able to step out and kind of pair my experience over, you know, the last 15 plus years and being able to help others to do something similar. So I would say that the passion is just, I find the joy in being able to work with others and helping them find solutions so that they are happy in what they're doing. So yeah.
I also do not feel like I'm going to work. My work is very hard and it's very emotional and intense, but I feel like it's my responsibility to be part of this movement and this work. And I feel like my philosophy, like Andy talked about identity, my philosophy is that we are all responsible for each other and that we are all connected and that we all should be together in building a safety net and support system for one another. And one of the leading experts on addiction right now, his name's Johan Hari, and he says that the opposite of addiction is not sobriety, it's human connection. And I feel like that is such a privilege in my work that I get to be part of someone's journey toward recovery and to just, I mean, my caseload right now is 27 people, and every day I have a separate work cell phone, and every day I turn my work phone on and like I just get to connect with people all day long. Do you have to go to the doctor? Do you want me to go court with you? Do we need to get you to a high level of care? If they're in crisis, they're reaching out to me. And to be the person, the first line of defense and the first person that someone is confiding in or surrendering or admitting that they need more help and they trust you to do that with them is just a true gift. And so it doesn't really feel like work. It just feels like connecting with people and maintaining relationships and just building a community.
Great, thank you. So the common thread here is obviously Lafayette. So could you talk a little bit about how Lafayette has impacted your path to passion?
Sure. I'll say that Lafayette impacted my passion by providing an environment that would allow me to grow my interests, right? And it wasn't one-dimensional. I feel like a liberal arts education really allowed me to study law, but it also allowed me to take French classes, to be an Excel scholar. And doing that, like I worked on an oral history documentation that focused on coeducation at Lafayette, and that turned into a play. So I was then able to host that in Farranon. And like, I feel like that sense of like being inquisitive, like getting to sit down with other women who were lawyers and, you know, doing so many different things in their life, it really did inform, and really it was empowering to sort of be around those individuals at such a young age, and communicating with them in that way. But at the same time, I was still able to focus on the things that I wanted to professionally, right? So I worked on a thesis that was about consumer class action suits, and that was really interesting for me. I mean, like I got exposure of how to use a law library and like things like that very early on. So like it was the balance, right? I think Lafayette really allowed me to explore my passion from a place of comfort, but also look into the creative elements of myself. So I didn't feel like, you know, although I knew that I wanted to go to law school, I didn't feel like that's all I did. I felt like I was able to grow all sides of who I was in an environment that was safe, but also it was fun. So yeah.
I don't know if I can sound so eloquent, but I can say that Lafayette was definitely a place that allowed you, we were talking earlier about just be exactly who you are. It very much encouraged that. And I feel that there was support on every corner. In the biology department, I think Dr. McCreary is on here. I always felt the support from my professors that I was really go do what you need, you know, what you're planning to do. And they were always there to help. And I took a lot of art classes, which I think also spoke to sort of a creative side of even what I do. And I think over time, I stayed connected to a lot of Lafayette friends, and I still feel very much like I could walk in there at any time and feel really a part of it. And I think that's sort of a very special, unique thing that not all colleges have. That, I mean, last night I talked to 2 people from Lafayette, and today I texted with someone who recently had surgery who just made sure his people knew. So it's like we all have this connection that I think is not going to ever go away. It's really a neat gift, and everybody has become who they are, and we've all sort of know where everyone came from. So I feel lucky to have been there and still be a part of it.
For me, I think that I was thinking about this question about how Lafayette impacted my path. And I thought about how I really think Lafayette gave me the tools, the courage, and the skill set to actually forge my own path and have the confidence to know that I don't need to follow a path that already exists, but that I can build my own, and that others will join me, and that I can be a leader in that way, and that it can be unprecedented, and it can be unique, and it can be my own, and that I will have mentors and a support system and a network and community that will be there on that path with me. I also think a core piece of just value that I took from Lafayette was challenging and questioning the status quo. I think my professors and mentors and community at Lafayette just taught me not to accept anything as a given, and that I can fight back and resist and push forward. And I also will just give another shout out to Doc Waters, because you wouldn't believe how much biology I use in my job. It's amazing. And I just calling upon all that knowledge all the time. She was also my professor. So yeah, I really wouldn't be half of who I am without Lafayette.
Can I jump in since
Yeah.
I got 2 shout outs?
Absolutely, since you had 2 shout outs. Please.
2 shout outs. And actually, Kamika, I didn't realize, were you involved with Hear Me Roar as well?
I'm sorry.
The play, the dramatic reading, Hear Me Roar, on the 30th, on the anniversary of admission of women. Is that the play you were putting up?
Actually, we actually did the first session. So, yeah,
Right.
we did the first
Right.
one.
So I have a connection to all 3 of the panelists because I was in the dramatic reading that was done, the second one. But so it's 2 of my antecedent in that sense. But you know, it was so wonderful to see this panel, and also to know that Annie and Sydney, both of whom were in my classes, were part of this group. And you know, I can remember Annie having a faculty member, God rest his soul, Bob Chase, who tutored you essentially to get your comparative anatomy so that you could apply to vet school, you know, and Sydney coming out for my first exam and saying, oh, that was refreshing. That was an exam that tested your knowledge, and I tried to make you become a bio major. So I'm thrilled that you're doing all this biology, which really demonstrates, and I'm doing health professions now too. You know, so it demonstrates to all of us that the environment at a school like Lafayette, and in particular at Lafayette, is an environment that fosters that kind of connection and creativity and our ability to push and stretch ourselves in ways that we might not we might not succeed, we might fail, and we'll learn a whole heck of a lot more when we fail than when we succeed. And you know, I just spent hours today, 3 hours on 3 different student advising sessions for dental and medical school, and it's astonishing the strength of our students and the community that supports them. So I applaud the 3 of you for coming back and giving back in your time and your treasure and your talent. I know Annie's been back for some health professions things, and I hope that you each find more ways that you can come back and be the mentors to the next generation of students that they are so seeking, because it's important to hear from people who've walked that walk. So, and I'll shut up. Thanks.
Say one more thing about this that I think Sydney was saying that I think is so true, and I'm not realizing it until this very moment as we're speaking, is I think that Lafayette gave us something. Like, I go out there and do what I do and don't care what other people think, and it somehow I land on my feet almost all the time. Obviously not all the time, but it like has given us this ability to like not be afraid, not be embarrassed, but just be comfortable with who we are. And I really do think a lot of that, sort of having the courage or the, what's the word, the grit to keep going and to make it work. And I really do think a lot of that comes from the support that we all had and felt together. And I still feel with the friends that I have from there.
Great, thank you. Actually, this conversation segues nicely into one of the questions that we have in the chat. And it says, for those in the audience who may not love what they're doing right now, what advice would you give them to pursue a job that would enhance their happiness level?
That's a good question. You know, one of the things that, so I lead these sessions with other women who are leaders in their individual fields. And one of the things that always comes up is that knowing what you want to do, like there's always this like gnawing feeling in the back of your mind, like this is something I would want to try, but then we don't take the steps to do that. So I would say that it would be trusting your instinct, and, you know, really believing in yourself. A lot of times we talk ourselves out of things because we don't think we have the skills to accomplish them. But to Annie's point, I feel like, you know, there's just this level of courage that you have, you know, being a Lafayette alum. And I definitely would say that if it's something that you're interested in and it's something that you want to pursue, if you feel like in the day-to-day, it's something that's guiding you back to that, you always find yourself leaning towards this particular topic, this, you know, whatever the passion is, that you find a way to integrate that into your life. Not everyone is cut out to be an entrepreneur. I'm not saying do that. I'm not saying, you know, run out and like, you know, quit your full-time job tomorrow, but find a way to integrate that into your life, right? Whether that is, you know, partnering with others who are in that space, volunteering to do work in that space so that you can kind of get a little bit more exposure. I would say find a way to integrate your passion into your life so that it feels more organic and that you feel like you're being your authentic self. Like that's when you know you're living your passion, is when you can get excited. Like I tell people all the time, I was like, I'm not a brain surgeon, but I love what I do. I enjoy what I do every day, and just finding a way to do that. Like I can't, hopefully, you know, that resonates with you.
I would also, like, total segue, that was also wonderful, is to bet on yourself and like to really believe in your ability and your potential, and that other people need you to actualize that potential and actualize that vision that you have, because you will create something that is bigger than you, and like create that sisterhood or create this community of people who will continue to mentor and benefit and heal together. And I would also say, just don't wait, just start now. And you don't, again, like Annie was saying, you don't need anyone to believe in it. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone. It doesn't have to exist already. And this is going to sound so corny, and I promise I've never thought about this until I was prepping for this panel. But along the lines of what Kamaka and Annie have been saying, I was washing my hands before this panel, which we should always be doing. And I thought to myself, is that what they mean when they say Kernan? Like, why not? And I never thought about that phrase all 4 years. And I was like, that was the phrase that they always said, is Lafayette, just why not? Just go for it, just do it. And that's the strand that I think all three of us keep talking about, is just like, there's no alternative. Like how will you look back knowing that you had this passion or this calling or this purpose and that you didn't act on it? Like that regret is something I would not want to know what it's like to live with that.
Okay, the question in the chat says, also, some people that fear that blending your passion with your work could lead you to resent your passion. How would you respond to that?
I would say you just get to decide. I mean, there are no rules, like Sydney was saying. So you do it to the extent that you're comfortable without losing your passion. And if it's really your passion and you're enjoying it, then it's probably not going to happen. If it does, oh well. I mean, this is it. You have one chance, so you might as well go for it. And I totally agree. You have a little voice in your head, and I think the older we get, the more we learn it's time to listen to them. When you don't, you're sorry, and when you do, I can't think of one time I've been sorry when I followed what I knew my gut instinct was. Nothing to lose. And I think you have to be you have to plan it out ahead. I mean, if you're not sure it's well, we're never sure it's gonna work, but you can't leave behind everything and quit your job and have nothing probably at this stage in life or the world that we live in, but you can still inch in that direction or have the courage to drop it all and go for it. I mean, I think you just have to take chances and go with what you want to do.
I mean, I think that there's also this sentiment of, you know, how do you truly define your passion, right? Like you could have an interest in something, versus like actually wanting that to be, you know, your career. And I think just finding the balance in that. Like what I said earlier, knowing what you want, you know, knowing what you want versus what you don't want is both of those are equally important. So finding an avenue to be able to test that theory, right? Like, is this something that I really want to do? And being intentional, like, you know, Annie's saying, like, you have to have not you have to have a plan, but if you're unsure, because the question was, if you're unsure how to do that, like take one step, do one thing each day that's going to get you closer to living that passion. And if you start taking those steps and you realize that it doesn't fulfill you in the way that you thought it was going to, then you know that that's not you don't want to turn your passion into your work. You want it to be like a subsection of what you do, right? So I think, again, it's just like you being courageous and figuring out, like, is this what I want to do? And you're only going to be able to answer that once you start taking steps in that direction.
I mean, I feel very fortunate. I don't know that, you know, I think of people who go to work and they think I have to go to work and I get to leave at this time. And, you know, I think probably for all of us on this panel, like there are no hours. Like for me, a horse doesn't know if it's Christmas or Thanksgiving or 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever, but I'm okay with that. I get it. I get there and they need me and the people need me. And, you know, if I have kids in the back of the car, nobody cares. They're just glad I got there. And I don't know why I just said that, but it's like just finding your passion, I guess, that doesn't use you up too much. And if it continues to send you, then it's great. I mean, I think it's hard to find that for a lot of people, but it's worth a try if you have something that you think you could enjoy.
Yeah, and I would just say setting boundaries with whatever you're doing. And if it needs to be incremental, then that's fine too. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I have 27 people on my caseload. If half of them decide to be in crisis one day, sometimes I'm like, I could just be a yoga teacher right now and like selling crystals and candles. Like, I don't know why I'm doing this. I should just stop now. And you know, you have to have a relationship with yourself first and then the work, so that you don't resent it and you realize that like this is just ebb and flowing. It's just going to pass. Of course, these feelings are not permanent, and then you just ride it out. And then remember that at the end of the day, like, you can't imagine doing anything else. So there will be obstacles and hurdles, and sometimes you might resent what you're doing because there's difficulties in whatever you do. But if at the end of the day you can't imagine anything else, then you figure out a way to make it work.
Sydney, I have to say, when you started talking, the first thing I thought to myself is she's young and I hope she doesn't do what I did. I had no boundaries until maybe 5 years ago, but all I thought to myself is you are going to get exhausted. And I hope that you have a bit for yourself. And so that's huge. It's literally taken me until the last couple of years to even know what the word boundaries mean. So I think that's really a really good point.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you. There's another question in the chat. It says, how did you find opportunities right out of college in fields that frequently require advanced degrees?
I didn't. I had to work for a veterinarian as a technician. I mean, there is no such thing in my field as a job with an advanced degree until you have an advanced degree. So you work your way, you have to get the experience, and you have to do whatever they ask you to do. And it's brutal and tiring and, I don't know, humiliating and all these things. But if you want to get there, you have to do them.
I mean, I think that there is a path in the legal industry. I mean, like, obviously, you know, prior to going, obviously I was a paralegal, you don't have to have a degree for that. But once you once you're in the industry, I feel like you are a summer associate, like you apply for a first year position. There's definitely steps that you take. But I will tell you one thing, that there has been some Lafayette connection in every single, I like my first, like even when I worked at Goodwood in New York right after college, I got a phone call and it was like, I saw your resume come across my desk. And I was like, oh my God, you went to Lafayette. Like it's like remarkable, like the Lafayette connection. And so I'm not saying that's the reason, but I certainly would say that like I definitely had a lot of support. Like when I was interested in doing something, I could reach out to, the Gateway Center. And like, what's interesting about that is that when I talk to my friends who have gone to other schools, who maybe larger schools, they talk about, how do you mean you reach out to, your career center and ask questions? I'm like, send them a message and say, hi, I'm interested in this. And then you follow the process. And it's like, no, that's not available. So I would say that, it's about being, again, being intentional. If it's something that you want to do, you will find a way to make it work, right? If, you're interested in an opportunity, there is always that chance to intern, again, to volunteer. If it's something that you want to do, you certainly can make it work. And then just leveraging your network. I mean, I feel like a lot of times we kind of like sit and spin about what we can and can't do, where the opportunities are, but sometimes just sending out, a message to, those around you saying, hey, I'm interested in this. Would you happen to know someone? Just as much as you would leverage, the Career Center, you can always, leverage your network of friends and family to help you, identify those opportunities that may seem difficult to find.
Along those lines, one other thing is that I think I've never applied for a job I didn't get. And I think it's just having the courage to make the phone call or to put yourself out there. And if you don't, someone else will. And you might, well, I shouldn't call them. Well, I shouldn't. You absolutely have to. You have to say, I am going to go for an interview and then I'm going to call them back. And sometimes just an email is not enough. They get 100 emails and I don't read 3/4 of the emails that I get. And people want to hear from you. They want a handwritten letter. They want you to literally go out there and put yourself out there and say, I want this job. Like, you don't be embarrassed or afraid or just, so if they say no, they say no. But if you don't, someone else will. So you have to have the courage once again to just go for it.
Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. So my last question is going to be, is there anything that you would do differently? Do you have any advice for those who joined us this evening? Anything you would do differently?
I don't necessarily think I would have done anything differently. Maybe probably taken an economics class. I don't know. Running a small business though, it's like, I could save a few extra dollars, like knowing something about, about this instead of like having to hire someone. But, overall, I think that, this experience has made me who I am, and I wouldn't change that. I think that, one of the things that we've all been talking about is, really being courageous. And that is something that I feel there was so much support for that, at Lafayette. And then even outside of that, the community has just been so supportive overall. And again, that's not everyone's experience, but you also have to see the good, choose to have that, choose to lean into the positive things that are around you. And that's, my approach to things. But I will say that, even the things that didn't go well, like they didn't go well, and to Dr. Warder's point, those are the things that make you even stronger. So I wouldn't necessarily, change anything about, my experience, because it's, made me who I am today. So.
I think Sydney said something really important. I even wrote it down, is that I think in my profession, I spent a lot of time just driving to do this and ended up doing this by myself a lot of times. And I think when she said something about the human connection, I think is that I would have maybe tried to do a little bit differently, and always tried to stay involved with other veterinarians, with my friends that were not even veterinarians, but instead I went into this like direct line. This is all I want to do. This is all I'm going to do. And I think human connection is very important. And it's very easy to forget that sometimes when you're just goal oriented.
Going on what Annie was talking about earlier, just a couple minutes ago, I think especially as women, what I would do differently, or just hopefully less of, is have less imposter syndrome and just less, just putting myself out there and like taking every opportunity. And, one of, if advice, if that's what we want to call it, would be like, not to let any financial situation, any lack of resources, lack of funding stop you from making your vision manifested, because if it's supposed to happen, it's going to happen. And if you rally the troops and you ask for help and you apply for the funding and apply for a grant and apply for a scholarship, like it will fall into place. And I mean, when you have a pure intention and you're trying to actualize it to improve, whether it's people's lives, horses' lives, whatever, it's going to be supported. I just believe that. And so just not allowing yourself to be the biggest obstacle in your way, and letting the people who want to help you, and they will if you just ask for it.
Well, that is a wonderful note to end on. I want to thank Alana, Annie, Kamaka, and Sydney for a truly inspirational panel. This has been a great discussion, and I think we've all learned so much. And I want to thank all of our audience members for joining us this evening. And just before we go on our ways, we'd love to invite you to our upcoming conference sessions. You can view and register for these events by visiting the leopardlink.lafayette.edu. I posted that in the chat. And we will be sending you an evaluation within the next 24 hours, and would greatly appreciate it if you could take a few minutes to share your feedback on tonight's session. And with that, I bid you all a wonderful evening. Good night.